You finally get a free afternoon. Nothing to do. No emails, no errands. You sit down on the couch, and within 10 minutes, you feel like you should be doing something. That feeling is not laziness talking. It is not a character flaw. It has a name, and researchers have actually measured it. In 2010, behavioral scientist Christopher Hsee at the University of Chicago ran a study where he gave participants a simple choice: complete a short task and then just wait out the remaining time, or complete the same task and walk to a location far away, doing more work for no extra reward. Most people chose the walk. Hsee called this idleness aversion. People will manufacture busy work rather than tolerate stillness, even when stillness costs them nothing. Here is the weird part. Hsee also found that busy people reported being happier than idle people, and this held true even when the busyness was forced on them, not chosen. So it is not really about wanting to be productive. It is about not being able to tolerate the sensation of stopping, so much so that forced busyness still beats freely chosen rest. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A separate line of research led by Celine Malcock, a marketing professor at Ohio State University, found something almost backwards. In a 2021 study with her co-authors Gabriela Tonieto, Rebecca Rechek, and Michael Norton, people who believed leisure was wasteful reported enjoying their leisure less, and reported worse mental health overall. Then the researchers tried something clever. They tried to convince a separate group that leisure was productive, hoping it would boost enjoyment. It did not work. Priming people to see leisure as wasteful hurt their enjoyment. Priming them to see it as productive did nothing to help. The belief itself was doing the damage. Reframing it as useful was not enough to undo that, which, honestly, makes a lot of sense once you notice how we talk about being busy in public. In 2012, essayist Tim Kreider wrote a piece for the New York Times called The Busy Trap, pointing out that when people complain about being busy, they rarely actually mean it as a complaint. Listen to how someone says it. There is usually a note of pride buried in the exhaustion. Busy has quietly become a status symbol, a way of saying I matter, I am needed, I could not possibly be replaced, which means resting is not just uncomfortable internally, it also feels, socially, like admitting you are less essential than you would like to appear. Ask someone what they did this weekend, and watch how fast they list tasks. Cleaned the garage, caught up on emails, finally organized the closet. Rarely does someone say, I rested, and leave it there, satisfied. Rest on its own does not feel like an acceptable answer, and now you know at least two separate reasons why. There is another layer to this, and it comes from journalist Bridget Schulte, who wrote about time use extensively in her 2014 book, Overwhelmed. Schulte kept a time diary for a year and handed it to John Robinson, a sociologist at the University of Maryland who has studied time use since the 1960s. His conclusion surprised her. According to his analysis, she had about 28 hours of leisure that week, a little less than average, but nowhere near the total absence of free time she believed she had. Her felt experience of having no time at all did not match the diary in front of her. Schulte called the scattered, unusable fragments of time most people actually experience time confetti. 15 minutes here, 7 minutes there. The leisure was technically real. It just never felt like enough to justify actually relaxing into it. And here is something that makes the guilt even more stubborn on top of that. Psychologist Sonia Lyubomirsky, who has spent years studying happiness and well-being, has documented hedonic adaptation, our tendency to adjust to good things fast. A relaxing afternoon that should feel rewarding starts to feel routine within minutes, which means the brain stops registering it as a reward and starts scanning for the next thing to do instead. Put those findings together: a brain that treats forced busyness as more satisfying than chosen idleness, a belief that leisure is wasteful, reinforced socially by treating busyness as a badge of importance, and a felt sense of having no time that does not match the actual clock. No wonder sitting still for an entire afternoon feels unnatural. Several separate systems, personal and social, are working against you at once. Here is a theory, and I want to be clear, this part is a hypothesis, not a proven fact the way the studies above are. Some evolutionary psychologists propose that in ancestral environments, sustained stillness carried a cost. A body at rest for long stretches was not gathering food, was not watching for predators, was not maintaining shelter. In a world with real scarcity and real threats, idle time may have meant falling behind on survival tasks that mattered. That is a reasonable explanation. It also has not been directly tested in a controlled study the way Hsee's research was. So take it as a plausible piece of the puzzle, not a settled answer. Evolutionary psychology is full of ideas like this. Logical, consistent with other findings, but still theoretical. What we do know for certain is the modern result. Somewhere along the way, doing nothing got rebranded as doing something wrong. And no, that is not a metaphor. The guilt is not coming from an external boss standing over your shoulder. It is coming from inside, and reinforced by everyone around you performing the exact same busyness, running on a script nobody actually wrote on purpose. Think about the last time you sat down to watch something and grabbed your phone anyway, not because you needed to, because sitting still with just the show felt like too much stillness. Stick with me here. That urge to add a second task on top of the first one is idleness aversion in real time. You cannot just watch. You have to also scroll. Doing one thing at a time started to feel like doing nothing at all. Or think about a Sunday morning with genuinely nothing planned. Instead of just enjoying it, you find yourself checking what you could be prepping for Monday. The rest is available. You are choosing not to take it, and you probably were not even fully aware you were making that choice. Here is where the science actually gives you something useful. Malcock's research suggests the problem is not a lack of information about how great rest is. Telling people leisure is productive did not move the needle. What moved the needle in her research was removing the belief that leisure is wasteful in the first place. That is a different task than convincing yourself rest is useful. It means catching the voice that says this is a waste of time and questioning it directly, rather than trying to argue back with productivity logic. It also might mean noticing when you are performing busyness for other people, since Kreider's observation suggests half the exhaustion is theater, and maybe it helps to remember Schulte's story too. Her time diary held more leisure than her mind was willing to admit. The feeling that you have no time to spare, or that you do not deserve to spend the time you do have, might just be a feeling, not a fact. So the guilt you feel on a free afternoon is not a signal that you are wasting your life. It is an old alarm system, or possibly a belief you picked up somewhere that leisure equals waste, or a habit of performing busyness because everyone around you rewards it, or a mind that consistently underestimates the free time actually sitting in front of it. None of those things are currently true for you, sitting on your couch on a Tuesday with nowhere to be, which means the next time you catch yourself reaching for a task to justify sitting still, you get to notice that moment for what it actually is. Not proof that you are lazy, just an old system, or an old belief, or a miscalibrated sense of time, firing on outdated information. Rest was never the problem. The story you were told about rest was.